first asked if Edgar Degas could be Jack the Ripper, a lot of you had very pertinent questions, insightful questions based on your own knowledge of the subject. But I had to stop myself from answering based on speculation alone, because although I had theories, I wanted to back them up, and now I have the research. One of the most enduring mysteries of Jack the Ripper is, why did he start and stop so suddenly? Any theory into his identity has to also address that. And so when investigating Edgar Degas, the French painter of ballerinas, as the suspect, you have to answer three main questions related to the timing of the murders. The first is, why would Edgar Degas start so late in life? After all, in 1888, he was 53 years old, which puts very close to the upper bounds of the average age of a serial killer. There just aren't many at all over 55. The second question is, why would a Parisian go to London to do these murders? The third question is nearly the same. If he did go to London for these murders, why did he stop in the end of 1888? All three of these questions were easily answered by what was my theory, which was that he did not start with the London murders. He started in Paris, which would be typical of serial killer behavior. Most start in their own backyard. However, I didn't want to introduce that theory until I had receipts. I wanted to find murders that matched the MO, and now I have. Which led me to reading scans of old French newspapers, which thankfully are easy to find online. And as I and other sources were speculating on the weirdly high number of unsolved sex worker murders in Paris, I came across a scholarly work mostly about the French press at the time, but examining it through the lens of one of the most high-profile sex worker murders of the time. After the Franco-Prussian War, France entered the Third Republic, and they were granted freedom of the press in 1881. Until that time, all press coverage of murders was covered by the state. After 1881, private presses flourished, but they had to compete with each other. They had to stand out, which led to the fait divers, which was a new type of crime reporting that focused on the mystery of it. It was well suited to daily papers because it reported on a murder as new evidence emerged. And so if you were following the coverage of a murder, you would want to buy tomorrow's paper too to find out what had happened. This was probably the advent of the true crime girly. Using this book and French newspapers, I was able to identify the murders of 8 different high-profile sex workers between 1879 and 1887. There were also another 3 unidentified female torsos that had been mutilated beyond recognition found within that period. Of these 11 murders, only 2 were ever attributed to anyone. Keep in mind that prior to 1881, any murders might have been hushed up, because when the press is state-run, unsolved crimes should be hushed up as they are destabilizing. But if you were to assume that 1879 was the date of the first sex worker murder, then that would place Degas being 45 years of age, which is closer to a reasonable time to start. However, you could also just assume that he started before then and there's no record. And if we're creating a timeline, we should also note that Degas became friends with Schirr in 1883. They immediately hit it off. Schirr was prone to sycophantism. We'd probably call him a groupie today. He wanted to be with the most famous people that he could.